Welcome to Cloud Tech Nexus Tutorials. In this video, we will cover setting up and configuring Windows Server 2012 Essentials. Although easy to set up at first, some tricky remote access steps will be covered as well. Using a hypervisor like Microsoft Hyper-V or VMware ESI is recommended. Please visit the previous video on how to set ESXi for more details. Setup can be tricky, for example, if you have a router that doesn't have universal plug-and-play enabled. Most current routers have UPnP built in. Make sure that it's enabled beforehand. Installing, configuring, and remoting to shared folders and virtual PCs will be shown. There are other servers to choose from with different price points and features to suit your organization needs. Here's a closer look at some features included in the Essentials edition. Although Essentials is covered in this tutorial, the same basic steps can be applied if Essentials is not for you. Remote demos will be shown from desktop to mobile device. Backend will consist of internet, cable modem, router, and server running ESXi 6.0. See previous tutorial on how to set up ESXi 6.0 for more details. Step is complete, you and others will have access to online shares and virtual machines with an internet connection. Let's launch vSphere and load Windows Essentials into ESXi server. The first workstation has already been created, but is not domain joined. This will be done later. Custom will allow more settings options. Give your server a name. The virtual machine options chosen are minimum. You may choose a higher settings if you have enough resources. Carefully choose how much disk size you need. This will determine how much online storage you will actually have. Load Essentials ISO. Double check settings and make sure Essentials is bootable before installing virtual machine. Choose preferred language and proceed installing Essentials. Choose your naming convention that suits your organization. Create an administrator password and log in. A configure prompt will launch at first login. Create your server name. The name here is for this tutorial. Create an administrator account and password. Update can be applied later. Run Server Manager. Disable IE Enhanced Security configuration. Find IP address so it can be changed from dynamic to static. (192.168.1.103) will be updated to 192.168.1.125 and made static. You can always choose another preferred IP address if available. Make sure remote connections are allowed and update computer description. Install VMware tools. Installing VMware tools will allow a smoother experience and only applies if using ESXi. Log in as the admin name that you created and not as the default administrator named account. Launch the dashboard. The dashboard is the interface for your featured server settings. The links are self-explanatory. Let's create the first user account. Active Directory was already configured during install, so administrator and standard user groups are available. If permissions are too high or too low, you can change it later. The link provided will be used to add a workstation to the domain. Let's add a second account. Server folders are where files are accessed and shared online via WRA. Let's create folders so users will not need to later. Company folders is public access and user folders are private and only accessible if user has administrator permissions. Shared folders are done. Now to configure remote web access. Make sure UPnP is enabled in your router settings. See your router documentation on how to enable. In this example, we will choose the free option, but will require a Microsoft account. Choose existing name or create one. If you get an error, you will need to troubleshoot the issue. Run the wizard again until you get a green check. Checkbox Remote Web Access. Leave Allow Anywhere Access checked. RWA is now configured. The domain name and public IP address is displayed on Anywhere Access settings. It's just blurred here for security reasons. RWA Web Portal settings. Portal links are customizable. Select Open Remote Desktop. Test Remote Web Access. Open web browser on a non-domain joined workstation and type in our WA web page and press enter. Log in with an account that has administrator permissions. Devices will show domain joined machines. No need to add if using administrator account. Company and user folders have subfolders created earlier. The three buttons on the far right toggle folder view and file details. The down arrow adds navigation links. Remote desktop connection can be customized and saved. Sign out. Sign in with a non-administrator account. Any existing or added device will need to be granted permissions to access remotely. Standard user will have access to assigned and company folders. But denied access folder without access permissions. No devices available. There is no workstation on the domain to add access to user. Sign out. Create any necessary shortcuts. A virtual Windows PC workstation has already been created. If you do not have a virtual PC workstation, you may create it now. Physical machines can be added to domain as well. Essentials supports Windows 7, 8, and 8.1. Server 2008 R2 and 2012 R2 can be added as well. macOS 10.6, Snow Leopard or later. The workaround for Windows 10 can be done by upgrading 8.1 already domain joined. Prep your workstation for domain join. Update computer description and allow remote connections. Change dynamic IP address to static. The preferred DNS server is the IP address of the Windows Server Essentials 2012 server. Domain join prep is complete. Open Internet Explorer web browser. http://servername/connect, where server name is the name of your Essentials server. Save and run the connector. You will be prompted if using an administrator account. Just select No at the prompt. Workstation name is retained during domain join prep. Domain join is complete. Log in with an account with administrator permissions. When domain joining Windows workstations and servers, the prep is the same. Notice the shared folders icon on the desktop. Files stored here are available through RWA portal. Workstation can be made accessible to users. Anywhere Access tab, make sure computers are checkboxed. Checkbox newly added workstation. Open Internet Explorer and access RWA page. Type in the RWA web page address, press enter. The standard user accounts now have access to domain joined workstation. Internet Explorer will connect directly. If using Google Chrome, the connection will be saved for connecting later. This can be useful for remote connecting to a workstation without logging into RWA. Remote connection is successful. Group policy is in effect blocking some setting changes logged in with the standard user permissions. Static IP address is retained. Apps and network resources available for a remote user. Virtual machine resources can be changed if needed. Taking snapshots are good to back up the virtual machine. If the virtual machine is not responding correctly, it can be restarted or reset in console instead of inside the virtual machine. This concludes remote connections on the Essentials server for PC. Connect to a remote workstation through RWA on a Mac. In App Store, search for Microsoft Remote Desktop. Install it. Open web browser, Chrome browser recommended. Open RWA webpage. Log in with a valid account. The additional servers added do not pertain to this demo. Clicking the first workstation will download the connection file for the remote desktop connection to use. Clicking the remote desktop connection file will start the remote session. Log in with a valid account. Default settings should allow a full desktop experience. The dock and remote desktop connections apps are available. Toggle full screen or change resolution settings. Remote connection settings are retained. Remote connection settings can be edited as well. Remote connections can be added manually. This is useful if changing default RDP port settings. This will be covered next with Linux. This concludes remote connections on the Essential server for Mac. There are many different versions of Linux. In this demo, we will use Ubuntu. As of this demo, Microsoft Remote Connection is not available for Linux. The workaround is to change the default RDP settings. This will be done on the second workstation, already on the domain. This will allow third-party remote apps to work smoothly. In the Run dialog box, type regedit or Windows key plus R. In the registry editor, follow the path shown to find the correct RDP registry key. Port number key is found. Export a backup first. This backup will be used to restore RDP back to original settings. Right-click, Modify. Select decimal. Let's change 3389 to 3390. Copy 3390. Start menu, search, Windows Firewall. Advanced settings. Inbound rules. New rule. Port. Next. Paste 3390. Next. 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 Custom RDP port. Finish. Open web browser and log into router. Second workstation will be port forward 3390. Restart. On a non-domain joined PC workstation, run Internet Explorer and test. Log into RWA with an administrator account. When attempting to remote log into Workstation 2 with Internet Explorer, it will fail. The workaround is to connect using manual settings and remote desktop connection. The public IP address is required. This can be found on the web at t1shopper.com/portscan. Public IP address, custom port number 3390. Example 192.168.1.100:3390. Replace 192.168.1.100 with public IP address. Now logged into Workstation 2. Remote connection settings has been retained. Remote connections to PC and Linux should now work. Remina works, but third-party remote clients are better to use. Same info remote desktop connection used, and Remina will work the same way. Before using Remina, adjust display settings. Choose display settings that work best for you. If you leave domain blank, you will need to fill it in later. Remina works, but not a smooth connection or user experience. Find a better remote solution in Software Center. In this example, remote desktop client. Remote desktop client looks and works very similar to remote desktop connection. Fill in the info that was used from remote desktop connection. Be sure to fill out the correct username and the domain info. The connection and user experience is better. This concludes remote connections on the Essentials server for Linux. To restore Workstation 2 RDP settings, double-click Save Registry Key to restore original RDP settings. Restart. On a non-domain joined workstation, run Internet Explorer. Open our WA webpage and log in. When attempting to remote access Workstation 2, we will be successful. On iOS, open the App Store. Search for Microsoft Remote Desktop. Install app. The remote connection file will need to be downloaded. Open Safari and open our WA webpage. Log in. Select Workstation to download remote connection file. Open in Remote Desktop Client. Log in. Mobile Remote Desktop Client app has options to navigate mobile device as shown here. Remote connection settings are retained. This concludes remote connections on the Essentials server for iOS. On Android device, open Google Play. Search for Microsoft Remote Desktop, download and install. Open Google Chrome, access our WA webpage. Log in. Select Workstation to download remote connection file. If you choose not to open immediately, you can access the remote connection file later in the device file system. Log in. Mobile Remote Desktop Client app has options to better navigate mobile device as shown here. Remote desktop connection file is not retained within the app, but the connection file is in the device file system. This concludes remote connections on the Essentials server for Android devices. This also concludes the tutorial covering the following. Thanks for watching.